Hello and welcome to Geometry A Credit 5. Today we'll be starting with the Engage activity, which is simplifying radical expressions. I provided a list here of your perfect square roots. Notice if I square root any one of these numbers, I will get a whole number. So for example, the square root of 4 is 2, the square root of 25 is 5, the square root of 81 is 9. Keep this list handy and feel free to extend that list out if you need more. So the first problem that you see is we're going to have the square root of 80. That's actually one of the examples in your packet. Just to break down how they can actually break that down and simplify that radical, what we're going to do is try and figure out what two factors multiply to get us 80. Now I know some of the numbers that come up are 8 and 10, or possibly 2 and 40, but it's going to be really important we use one of these factors here. So 80 divided by 1. As you can see, doesn't really change anything. Whereas if I do 80 divided by 4, which is another perfect square, it actually gets me a whole number as well. That's awesome. So I'm going to see if there's something a little bit bigger that I can divide by 80. How about 9? So if you compute that in your calculator, you'll see that you'll get a decimal. Go ahead and do it. Oh, yeah, we got 8.88. Let's try one more last one before we decide, yeah, 4 is probably the biggest number. Let's try 16. So 80 divided by 16, go ahead and figure that out. Do you get a whole number? Why, yes, we do. We actually get 16 and 5. So to simplify this out even further, the square root of 16 is 4. Now notice because I could not square root 5, it's not a perfect square, we're going to leave it actually in the radical. So that was actually already an example done for you. We're going to do a few of the practice problems that are listed for you. So square root of 49, before I even factor, I'm going to see if the square root of 49 is on here. Can you find 49 on this list? There it is. So the square root of 49 is actually 7. So that one was easy to simplify. So right here for the square root of 18, maybe we'll get lucky. So let's go ahead and look. I see the square root of 16, but I don't see 18. So we're going to have to break this down into two numbers. So let's go ahead and decide 18 divided by what would get us, let's try 1. So I just kind of try to list some of these numbers. It does work, but it doesn't break anything down. Let me try 18 divided by 4. And if you calculate that out, you'll probably get a decimal. Yeah, so that won't work. Let's try 18 divided by 9. And what'd you get? 2, right? So that breaks it down to 9 and 2. So if I square root both, I can square root the 9. What's the square root of 9? 3, right? And then the square root of 2, since it's not listed, I'm actually going to leave that here. I'm going to square root 9 and get 3. And that's as simplified as it gets. All right, moving right along, let's do 175. So again, let's kind of look at our list of numbers that we can break this down to. I don't see 175 on here, unfortunately. So let's try our list of numbers. 75 divided by 1. Yeah, but it doesn't really change or break down, right? Let's try 75 divided by 4. Oh, that's a decimal. If there's one you want to skip to that you're like, I don't want to try all these out, feel free to, but I'm going to keep going down, doing a process of elimination. I will find something that works out. Set 175 divided by 9. 175 divided by 16. And then 175 divided by 25. It might work because they both ended in 5. Let's see. Ooh, I do get a whole number, so let's go ahead and put that there. 25 and 7. And what is the square root of 25? 5, right? Since I can't square root 7, I'm going to leave it as is. All right. Let's try this one here. So notice I am going to leave that 5 that's out here, but I'm going to try and break down 45. So again, let's go ahead and try our list of numbers. 45 divided by 1. That doesn't really change much. Let's try 45 divided by 4. Again, if you don't want to go through this whole list and you think you already know what that number is, go ahead and try it out. I go right back down and see if that works. Hey, it does. So what would the square root of 9 be? 3, right? As you can see, I don't see a square root of 5, so I'm going to leave that square root. I'm going to bring down that 5. Square root of 9 is 3. And I'm going to bring down that square root 5. What's 5 times 3? What would that be? 15, right? And then I'm just going to bring that square root of 5 so it's right next to each other. And that's my final answer. Let's continue on. Multiplying radicals, as you can see in the example in your packet, all you do is combine both of those numbers into one radical. And you multiply. 2 times 5 is 10. So here 5 times 10, we'll put both under one radical, and 5 times 10 would be what? Square root 50. Now we can leave it like this or we can break it down. So I chose 25 and 2. What's the square root of 25? 5, right? Okay. So notice that I'm going to leave the radical 2 there since I can't really square root 2. Continuing on, let's go ahead and write this under one big radical. Go ahead and pause if you'd like and try this out. And that would be 6 times 6, which is, check your perfect square list to see if maybe that appears somewhere. And it does, actually. The square root of 36 is 6. Continuing right along, multiplying some more stuff out. So we're going to do 3. Put both of these under one parenthesis, or one radical. Alright. So if I multiply that out, I would get this. Now I can leave it like this, but we can also break it down. So break it down into 2 factors. Try your list again. Remember we had 1 squared, 2 squared. Sorry about that. 3 squared, 4 squared. So try and see which one, if I tried 72 divided by what number. We can try some of those out. And go ahead and pause here if you want to try out which one of these would work. Actually, 36 would really be the biggest number, which is 6 squared. Alright. What's the square root of 36? 6, right? So I'm going to bring down that 3 and that rad 2. What's 3 times 6? 18. Cool. So try out this next one. Otherwise, pause right here if you want to try that one out. That would be -4 and 20 times 5, which would be 100. And then the square root of 100 would be 10. We're going to bring down that -4. Go ahead and calculate what that would be. Awesome. All right, let's move right along. We're going to do the last part, which is dividing radicals. So here you'll see in your example, all we're going to do is multiply by rad 2 for both sides because this was my denominator. And if I do that, 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. And I can simplify this further because the square root of 4 is 2. On some of the examples they give us, so here we have square root of 8 over 100. This is actually a perfect square. What is the square root of 100? So I can't really simplify that any further, but square root of 100 is 10. So we can leave it like this since we do have a rational number in the denominator, or we can simplify it further. What are 2 factors for 8? 4 and 2, right? So square root of 4 would be, well, radical 2 we can't square root, right? But the square root of 4 would be 2. Again, you can leave it like this, or you can simplify it even further, because 2 can go into 2 once, and 2 goes into 10 5 times, so you're left with 1 rad 2 over 5. And the last 2. So on here, let's go ahead and multiply both top and bottom by radical 5. And then if you continue going on, that would be 4 rad 5, and 5 times 5 is 25. Awesome. Let's go ahead and simplify that even further. And you would get this. For this one, what would I multiply both numerator and denominator by? Rad 3, right? So let's go ahead and multiply that out. 3 times 3 and 5 times 3 under 1 radical. That would be 3 times 5. And 3 times 3 is 9. What would 3 times 5 actually be? So square root of 9 is 3, and 3 times 5 is 15. Awesome. Let's continue right along. We're going to pause right here, and we'll do the first lesson in another video. If you need additional support, please go ahead and reach out to your teacher or tutor, and we'll go ahead and provide you that support if you need a couple more extra problems just to do. All right. Thank you so much.